Thank you. All right. Awesome. Let me share the screen. Okay, let me know if you see the presentation. Yeah, okay, good. All right, so thank you for joining the last UX community call of the year. This sounds so apocalyptic in a way. We have quite an important topic for today, but before jumping to that, I wanted to give a bit of an overview. So the call is being recorded, and the recording will be available after the call. We recently also started posting on YouTube, so people can watch later. Please feel free to add the meeting, any type of questions you have to the agenda, so we can read from there, or if you have other topics you'd like to discuss that are related to design or to the user experience for Grafana, feel free to do so. We have quite a lot of time for today. And we do that. So we meet as usual on the first Monday of every month. And the next one this time will be on the 1st of February, because in January it's super close after all the holidays and people might still be out for that. Each meeting has a different theme or feature. And as always, the community is super welcome to add their own themes. So we really want you to also drive these discussions because we are doing this call for you mostly. The URL is, well, this one, you already joined, and you can subscribe for our calendar for other updates. If you want to talk with us and you aren't on our public Slack, please join grafana.slack.com. We have a channel where we watch super closely called Grafana Fail. So if you see something that it's failing or is not working properly, or you think it should be different, just drop us a line in there, or you can email us at ux@grafana.com. So the topic today is creating a more accessible experience for Grafana. I would like to start this topic with an overview on what we mean by accessibility, web accessibility, product accessibility in general, where we stand currently, and I will invite you to share your feedback and your experience, or your colleagues or friends' experience, if you have any, on this topic before jumping to conclusions or other next steps. So why do we care about accessibility and what accessibility is in the first place? When we talk about it, we talk about computer accessibility in our case, and refers to the accessibility of a computer system to be able to use it by all people, regardless if they have a disability type, by severity, or being in any type of visual impairment, for example. That means, so people have different visual impairments. They might have troubles not seeing some colors from the others. They might just wearing eyeglasses, or their sight is not how it used to be. They might have issues not being able to use a mouse, for example, because of motricity things, or they just want to use a keyboard because they hate a mouse, I don't know, and they are used of using keyboards. And to put things in perspective, 1 billion people, or actually 50% of the world's population, experiences some form of disability. So it's super important for us to have this addressed, even if things are not very pink right now. But we want to change this in the near future as much as possible. And also, another example, at least 10% of the adult population has some sort of vision impairment. And we all are also getting older, so chances are increasing we will get there at some point. If you want to learn more, just in general, for your own knowledge, you can access this project called accessibilityproject.com. There have some great resources and the checklist. You can also try it on your own projects that you're working on. And I was saying we're going to talk a bit about the current state of things at Grafana. So how we approach this, I run with one of my colleagues an accessibility audit on a few important pages. You do not have to do all things manually. There are browser extensions available. There are some other open source tools out there that can help you, give you an overview. So I've run one of these tools against a Grafana dashboard, against Explore, and two other key pages. And as it appears, well, things are not looking very bright at the moment. So what this tells us, both for the dark and the light theme, that we have some errors when it comes to the page structure itself, how we build it behind it. It tells us that for color blindness test, that graphs in general, data visualization in general, is hard to see by people with some sort of visual impairment. That the color contrast is quite low, so we have a number of issues in here. And the last one, that trying to navigate Grafana using only keyboard is just impossible. And pretty similar for the light theme. So there are a number of things we should be addressing, that's for sure, right? But then we have ones that are more important, I would say, than others, right? What's more important, to be able to make sure that everybody can see the data in front of them, or that everybody can see what's in that UI in the end. And just to give you an example of how that color blindness test looks like. So on the bottom right of the screen, there's how a normal people sees that. And I'm sorry if somebody here in the call today is actually red blind, has some sort of red blindness and they cannot see this. Versus the top left corner where that's how they would see it, right? So this helps us a bit as designers to kind of see what other people would see it. It's still far from reality. I know that the human eye is a bit different than a machine would tell us, but it's a starting point that kind of shows that we have some issues to be fixed. And I know, and a lot of our users already complained. They complained on Twitter. We have some issues already open in GitHub. They complained during user research. I would stop for now before jumping to how to fix this, because I would really like to hear from your experience, if you have some. Have you gotten to a place where you try to use keyboard navigation, or are there areas in Grafana that you do not see properly, or that they are too much for you, or it can be even about the content itself. Are there places in Grafana that it's hard to understand the writing that we have in there? Anybody wants to share something? Diana, I know you said a few users already complained during user research. Do you remember what was it mostly about?
Yeah, so there were a number of issues. So some people mentioned that viewers of dashboards are often older people whose vision is maybe not so great. And also some people also mentioned that they struggle, which is not a surprise, but we actually talked to people who mentioned that they can't read red on black, which you know is the biggest no-no. But when it comes to accessibility, but yeah, but they were very specific specific about this. Some other people mentioned, and that's not a surprise really, that they navigate via keyboard, and that is cumbersome. So some parts of Grafana you can navigate with keyboard, whereas some other parts it's tricky at best. So I think those were top three issues, which is having people who have problem with vision because they're older. We have red on black, which we have a lot in Grafana, to be honest. And then navigating via keyboard was one of the big things. Also, I don't know if there are any. Does anyone here in this meeting have any other examples of heard about other examples of issues with Grafana when it comes to accessibility?
I could maybe add just one issue that I've noticed, and that was very interesting to me because I learned that browsers and also operating system have different shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts. So we should be also aware of that because we had in Grafana shortcut that was doing, I'm not sure what browser was it, but in the browser it was doing something different. And therefore they weren't able to access what they wanted with the keyboard shortcut. So maybe that could be also a thing that I didn't consider before and learned about that just through the issue.
Yeah, and with browsers, even using a regular tab, the highlight could be different on the same HTML element. So a link would appear different in Safari versus Chrome, right? If you just use the default one. And data visualization definitely has the biggest challenges, right? Because while the UI can be easily fixed, or we have so many panel types, and not all are made by us, right? We have to take into consideration we have also the community doing a lot of these plugins. And if we think of a solution, we should be thinking how we can improve kind of the entire experience. And there are solutions proposed out there. We would like, I guess, to make sure we manage to validate this with people. Because again, it's one thing to just have them as examples, and I have a few examples to show, but validating them with real people is a bit different. All right, anybody else would like to share something from their experience? Have you ever had a problem not being able to see or navigate in Grafana? I mean, even for regular people, depending on how you build your dashboards and the panel types, it can still be quite a lot to take in if you have a lot, like Diana was saying, red on black, right? Or the entire red screen, that could be just too much for the eye, depending how much you have to look at that. All right, if nobody wants to share anything, I would move forward to kind of what I was thinking on improving this experience, and we already discussed it briefly today with the rest of the team. So main issue that we identified was about navigation, the page structure which leads to that navigation. And while we improve navigation using the keyboard or the page structure, that could also be beneficial for other type of impairment, because using a screen reader, for example, relies on the same basic rules for navigation, color contrast and dashboard accessibility. Right, so improving this experience, we were thinking of a few things we could be doing, right? Some of them could be quick wins, some of them will take a bit more time, but all of them are quite achievable, I would say. First would be to improve the accessibility for the light theme. if we think of like both dark and light theme should, or we are trying as much as possible to have some basic contrast in them, but avoiding that red on black, or it's just easier to do so in a light theme. So all the UI elements should have what we call a minimum contrast ratio of 4.5. And then the next step would be, I was thinking to create a high contrast theme, right? And you would switch this in your preference menu, like just like you do today. So if you have any sort of impairment, you can just pick an even higher contrasting theme, and I have as an example just afterwards. Another thing that we could be doing, and we are not doing this today, that all charts should support color overrides. I was testing different options, and I would say so far 1 out of 3 supports color or palette overrides. So this could be standardized across all of them. So just think instead of using red and green as 2 of the colors, we could be using red and blue, and that would address a certain condition. And the fourth one would be to create an easy to use color palette for different type of color blindness. So what we said on the fourth point, but just taking it a step further and recreating these palettes for the ease of use. And this change you could also be doing in your preference page, so it will be saved across Grafana and improving that experience. How this type of an improved contrast theme would look like. So while it doesn't look that much different from what we have today, there are a few things that I changed in here. So I made sure that all the colors have a bigger contrast ratio of 7.5, so as much as possible. The text changed from gray to black. I increased the font size a bit, and I made sure that we are using a thicker font than we used before, right? So it doesn't necessarily change too much that interface, it's just an increase of contrast. And this, how it looks on the next pages. So if you go to an edit panel, you'd see that here, all these lines, have a bigger contrast. All these labels have been increased from 12 pixels to 14 pixels, including buttons. They also have new borders that are more visible. And how it would look in your preference. This is just another page to show buttons with bigger contrast and fonts as well. On the chart side, so where things are getting a bit more complicated, what we could be doing, and we are not doing today. So right now, if you click on any chart legend, it will open a little model where you can change the color. But what we are not doing, we are not highlighting that data point. So hovering should highlight data. We should not rely only on color for contrast, but we could use a pattern or a different line type where possible. So we will rely also on form, not only on color. And we could apply a change in the panel colors by only one click. And how this could look. So in the first example, the top left one, I just started with thicker lines and different colors. So the norm is, or the default one is 1 pixel, here is 2 pixels, so we can go even further. And then I'm using shape lines, right? For sure, this won't work on all type of graphs, and depending on your data that you are transmitting, it could become very cluttered very fast. But if you would, if you would hover over them like I'm doing here, in this case, I'm highlighting series B. So I get to see it a bit better. When it comes to pattern, I'm having, sorry, 2 examples here on using a pattern. I'm not sure yet if this is enough. This is something that we would like to definitely test. And also 3 different types of patterns for a different chart. I was saying hovering will highlight series B. And if I would like to change not only the color, sorry, per se, oh my God, my mouse is super sensitive tonight. I could change the entire color of the whole series in that panel by selecting a high contrast versus a default one, instead of just changing color per series. For the navigation part, there are a number of things we could be doing. So first, make it accessible by keyboard only. Yeah, we want to get there. How? We may want to make sure that the focus order is as you see it on screen, right? So the order in the HTML follows what you see on the screen, that focus is visible so that clickable elements show focus. And we are talking here about any type of clickable elements, be it links, be it buttons, or things that you might not even see it in the first place, like when you press, when you click on a panel title and that it's actually a link that opens a little menu. Bypass blocks, so provide a skip to content, and this is super important. I will show it as an example. Make sure that pages have appropriate page titles and avoid using elements that are visible only on hover. How this could look like. So right now, if you are trying to navigate any page in Grafana using tabs, it will first jump to the sidebar menu, and it will try to go in all that links in the order, right? And maybe that's not what you are after, right? You might want to be after to, I don't know, to edit a panel title or create a new dashboard. In that case, we have, the first thing you should see when you use tab is a link that appears saying skip to main content, right? So this you're only gonna see if you're using a keyboard. If you're just pressing tab, as you focus on that page. Panel title, right? This is something we are not highlighting today. It's just as easy as adding a border to that menu. So, and then imagine that if I would press another tab, it will take me to all of these other links. The same if I do not want to skip to main content and I would just want to continue in that menu at some point. Let's say I'm going to reach dashboards, and instead of this being visible on hover, as soon as I press tab, I should see that expanded menu. All right, so yeah, those were a few of my examples. I would like to ask you, what do you think about these sort of implementations? If they are enough, if you'd like to see something else in here, or how do you feel about this sort of implementation?
I really like changing series from the colors from default to high contrast, right? The one thing I'm wondering is, because if I remember correctly, that was on a panel level, right?
Yeah.
Why not making that on a dashboard level? Like, why would I want to see only, if I have problem seeing certain colors, then it would maybe make more sense to do it on the dashboard level.
So one of, actually, 2 of my suggestions. One was, actually to have this, but not only on dashboard level, but on the entire Grafana. So you should be able to select a high contrasting color from your profile, like you do with the themes. But then if you do not want, and most you see, okay, most of your panels and maybe just some have some sort of problems, you should also be able to change JIT per panel, I don't know, for a brief moment for that specific data visualization. And in here, I would see more than just high contrast, right? I would see those examples I was saying about maybe selecting colors that are proper for different color blindness people. So I would change, in our case, we have the default one colors, red, orange, and yellow, and I could be choosing something that is towards green or towards blue. And so meaning the red blind people could also see those as intended. I'm not sure yet about this pattern, like if they are visible enough or not.
No, that was actually the sorry. As much as I like this pattern, and also you had on a line graph with different shapes. Yeah, so that works great when panel is big and you look, from close up. But if the panel is small, those shapes may become hard to differentiate. And the same goes for this pattern in stack graph.
Yeah.
It may be even more tricky. I mean, what we could try to do is maybe have this pattern, because it's a very tiny pattern, and like it's very subtle thanks to that, but maybe what we need to do is just be less subtle with those patterns, and then it would work. That wouldn't be beautiful, maybe, but it would be way more accessible for sure. And
Yeah, so I think we should play around with the intensity of the pattern itself until we get to a point like people are actually seeing this. And this is the hardest to test, because no test will tell you if a pattern is visible enough. We really have to find the people to test this with. What we could be doing, on the other hand, is to have a tiny switch on the panel to activate or deactivate shapes and patterns in a specific case.
Then I would argue it should be on a dashboard level again.
Yeah, that as well. But what you were saying, and maybe we need to afford more granularity here, because what I'm thinking, when you create a dashboard, you choose how big your panel you want to be, and if you edit that, I'm thinking this exact graph, right? Maybe you have it twice. One is a big white panel, and the next one underneath is half the width of this one, right? So it will work on the bigger one, but not work on the smaller one. I would offer the user the possibility to choose, I guess. We just need to figure out a nice way to make this happen.
It's really nice to have this sort of granularity. One thing I would wonder whether, as much as it's cool to have it, like, and I think we've discussed this, but having Slike-like themes, which is switch Grafana to a mode where I have to check what it's called, but they have themes that are super cool visually, but they have a different set that is purely for specific vision problems, accessible and clear. And there is one for Tritanopia and one from I can't read this, but there are two themes that are super specific for different vision problems. So maybe that's what we could do on a more general level, and maybe just starting with colors. There's nothing easy about colors and vision impairment, but that could be easier than trying to add patterns to stack graphs or shapes on line graphs, because the whole point of adding shapes or patterns is to make it more visible, right? Or more distinctive. Whereas if we get the colors right, it shouldn't be a problem, unless someone is colorblind, right?
Yeah, there are still places where it still becomes like in these examples, in the end, they are just 2 or 3 series. But I was playing, let me just stop sharing this one and I'm gonna share while I was playing today with playing Grafana. If I'm gonna have this panel with server requests in here where I have 4 series and the lines are so close to one another, it's still gonna be almost impossible to distinguish among them. On the other hand, another possibility would be to kind of zoom like we do here. I'm not sure just if how easy people are finding all these quirks that Grafana has. Like how easy do people know that if you select and release, you actually zoom? And how do you actually go back? I'm guessing, right? How many people know if you click, you're gonna open these parts? So
No one, like,
yeah,
not many.
exactly. Right. So there are other things, I guess, that they are more related to usability, but they also affect the accessibility overall in the end. You know, and how do I reset this? I do not. Okay. So yeah, I agree with you. We could we could start with color because that's easier. Having different line types in here would be just too much. For some will work, for some will won't. And then we have the big issue with making sure we can apply this for all the panel types when it comes to data visualization, even those made by community, or how can we make them be able to change colors. Okay, what else would you think would be useful, if anything, right now?
I mean, for me, in general, I think we're so behind when it comes to accessibility that having one very accessible theme and fixing keyboard navigation would be a quantum leap for us, basically, at this point. So I love all the ideas and all the stuff that you explored, Joanna, and I think it's something we should aim for. But even baby steps for us are huge at this moment, I think. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for your feedback. I guess, yeah, if nobody else has something, we could wrap this meeting. I'm just checking right now if we have something on the agenda. Looks like not. All right, so what I would say after this,
maybe someone else still have some comments before we move. Like, what do you think? Like, is the, I don't know, most crucial thing to fix from your perspective? Does anyone here navigates Grafana via keyboard? No one. Richie says, if I could, I would. Richie, you can also use your voice if you want to. But yeah. Jeremy, mic is broken in Zoom. Jeremy, how about you? Do you ever use keyboard to navigate?
I don't really. Sometimes when I drop the title menu down on the panel, that's about it.
Okay. Brijesh, I don't know if I pronounced this correctly. Did it ever happen to you?
No, I didn't try with keyboard.
Did you ever expect it or heard about, I don't know, if you work in an organization or you have some other users, like, did you ever heard about anyone having problems with using keyboard or any like accessibility issues?
Unfortunately, not yet.
Not yet. Yeah. Cool. Oana?
Yeah, I think if you want to try it for yourselves, I wouldn't advise against. But if you do want to try it and you feel like it's not working, or you heard something, please reach us on Slack, on the public Slack, or you can write us on Twitter. We are on Twitter as well, or any other channel that works for us. We really want to hear from the community on these topics. And I would also ask you if you have something you'd like to discuss today. We still have some time left. Is anything that's annoying you right now, or you wish it would be different?
Or maybe something you really love and would like to take it to yet another level. I mean, whatever is on your mind. Also, this will be published on YouTube. So if you have any ideas or comments, both regarding topics or feedback for what Oana presented or whole discussion about accessibility, just drop a comment on YouTube. We will definitely read those. Yeah, and feel free to reach out to us either on Slack or via YouTube.
I think this was it. All right, thank you everyone for attending and those on YouTube for watching. I hope you'll have a wonderful new year and way better than this one. Not very hard to do so. So keep up the good
Please
spirit.
do not challenge 2021. Don't do that. I mean,
And see you everyone in February. 1st of February. What a good day.
all right. Thank you. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Bye.